Hi, everybody. I hope you're well today. Today's segment 6, is small words and time. There's 5 small words that I believe Shakespeare uses as stress words all the time. These 5 words are all, now, this, then, again. There will be a handout that you can follow along with to see this. I'm asking you to find these in your own texts and practice. Now that I've said he stresses these words all the time, please remember what we said in every segment. The only thing that he does all the time is break the rules. Here are some examples. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women. Jaques from As You Like It, Richard III from Richard III, now is the winter of our discontent. Queen Margaret from Henry VI, Part 3, come, make him stand upon this molehill here. Then hurl down their indignation, how shall I win my lord again? Those words in your text take a stress and they make your character pop. I encourage you to experiment and explore. The next 2 small words for me are extremely important. If, then. If sets up a situation or asks a question. The then part of the phrase is the dare, self-dare, or the challenge. It goes, if this, then that. When I was young, there was a president named John F. Kennedy. In a book that he wrote, he said he met with his cabinet every Friday, and their job was to come up with all the ifs, and his job was to come up with all the thens. President Kennedy understood rhetorical thought. If then is a very powerful rhetorical tool. If this, then that. William Shakespeare's favorite thing to do is reverse them. He puts the then before the if, which you need to know as an actor is him saying your character's incredibly clever and witty because they can switch things. Catherine, when she was talking to Petruchio, says, no such jade as you, if me you mean. You have to understand the then does not have to be written. The then can always be implied. She's really saying, then no such jade as you, if me you mean. So it goes strong, weak. Maybe there's a reason for that, which was what I would want you to explore. One reason might be she thinks he's really attracted to her, so she disagrees with him rhetorically in playing with him, no such jade as you, and then she's not so sure about herself. If me you mean. That's one choice of 1,000. Your job is to find the right choice. Moving on to the next small words, and, but, yet. These little words may not seem like much, but they're clues to where the direction of the thought is going. Don't overlook them and know how they function in a sentence. And is a springboard. It lifts you into the next thought. Hamlet said, inexplicable dumb shows and noise. He springs into the next thought. We tend to go waltz rhythm. Remember in the previous segment, I said Shakespeare's jazz with punctuation. Nothing but inexplicable dumb shows and noise. And that's boring. It's samey. Jazz is nothing but inexplicable dumb shows and noise. It lifts. I would encourage you, all of you, to take the word A-N-D and make it apostrophe N-D. The audience will still totally understand what you're saying. Americans have a tendency to harshly make it and noise. They let this sound out, where you can simply go and noise. This is you adding things up. The 1 plus 1 equals 2. If music be the food of love, B equals 2, play on. But means I'm going on. I have a lot more to say. You're making a decision or you're thoroughly explaining your argument. Yet means I have a lot more to say and you're turning in a new direction. When a character goes, but yet, 90% of the time it's comedy. Most people don't go, but yet. So you're going on because you have a lot more to say, which is Helena talking to Demetrius, trying to convince him that he should love her. Or means you're comparing the values, you're weighing the merits. You're going straight and then you say or, and you either make a left-hand turn or a right-hand turn, which means you sound different, vocal variety. You should look at Launcelot Gobbo's speech in The Merchant of Venice. Shakespeare's given him about 8 ors, so he changes a lot. Nor is giving more evidence for your argument. You're doubling down. With is often used with this. With this, so it's important extra information that you're sharing. For is often used in furthering the argument or determining the winning conclusion. Petruchio again says to Catherine, for dainties are all cates. Unless is used when you're backtracking. You're going forward and then you say the word unless and you take a step back. The change in the movement is what causes the change in the voice. Tamara says to her sons, unless the nightly owl or fatal raven. In a debate-oriented society, these words are like little rudders. A tiny rudder can steer a big ship. These little words can help steer your argument. Pay close attention to them and how they're being used in the speech. Again, you can see all of this in your handouts, and I encourage you to practice them. The next little words are this and that, thus, here, and there. This is where I ask you to infuse these words with a feeling or point of view because they represent something. Also, these words are often used as stage directions to where your focus should be. Thus must be demonstrative. What I mean is physical. Hamlet says, do not saw the air too much your hand thus, but use all gently. The thus is demonstrative or physical. This and that. Sebastian in Twelfth Night has the famous this and that speech. After having going into the house with Olivia, and again, Shakespeare never says what happens in the house, he comes out, he looks at the open sky and he says, this is the air, that is the glorious sun. This pearl she gave me, I do feel it and see it, and though 'tis wonder that enwraps me thus, yet 'tis not madness. Those were stage directions for the character playing Sebastian, and Shakespeare was encouraging this person to have a point of view about each moment. This, that, thus, here, and there can seem like throwaway words, but they're not. You need to give them extra attention. Sometimes this or that is loaded, packed, and it explodes with meaning if it is. Hamlet, in the closet scene with his mother Gertrude, has 2 pictures, one of his father and one of the new king, the brother. He says to Gertrude, look on this, and now on this. So he uses the word this twice. We've talked about that earlier. Say it the second time because it sounds so good the first time. We've talked about the word now earlier. They're little words. They're packed. They're steering this ship of Hamlet. Mackers also uses these little words. In his speech, here, But here, upon this bank and shoal of time, he's making it very specific and very in the moment. In Hamlet, here and there are used greatly. When Hamlet sees the ghost for the first time, the here as opposed to the there is very specific when they're talking about Claudius and when they're talking about his father, the old King Hamlet. So the words must be loaded because the way that everybody feels about Claudius is totally different the way than they feel about the old King Hamlet. Moving on to the next small words. Shall versus will. This for me is one of the most fun. When actors learn the lines, he goes back and forth from shall to will, and it can be very difficult. And the reason is because they don't know what shall means or what will means. Shall means the character is speaking with absolute authority as to the outcome. Will means that the character is speaking with a submission to God's authority, such as when you say, I'll be there tomorrow, God willing. Shall means the character is giving the greatest possible assurance. It's like divine assurance when it's used. The idea of absolute authority, certainty beyond the use of shall is a great clue to a character's confidence. In Romeo and Juliet, Romeo says to Juliet, and all these woes shall serve as sweet discourses in our times to come. If you're playing the role, there are a couple of things to think about with the use of shall as opposed to will. Romeo may absolutely believe what he says, thus the use of shall. Or he may not be 100% certain, but Romeo uses it as a way to comfort Juliet as he says goodbye. She is worried that he won't ever see each other again. If Romeo says will, it leaves it up to fate, and it doesn't give near the comforting confidence that shall does. Juliet, when she's talking to her mother, says, he shall not make me a joyful bride. She's 100% sure that it's not going to happen. Moving on to the last little words, which are pronouns. Every voice and speech teacher is going to tell you, you never stress the pronouns when you're doing any kind of dialogue or speech. Again, I would say the only thing that Shakespeare does is break the rules. I've given you in this handout Richard II's speech, and I believe that Richard stresses all of his pronouns. He starts with, we are amazed, and thus long have we stood. The first we is a double we. When you're in Shakespeare and you say we, it may mean the royal we, the king. It may also mean the men who are standing behind him, his court. They are the we. We are amazed, and thus long have we stood. His thus means he's planted. He's using it as his stage direction. To watch the fearful bending of thy knee, because we thought ourself thy lawful king. He stresses these pronouns. He's being facetious. It might be how he's accomplishing his action, but when they're not stressed, the speech just does not have the same bite or the same power. Again, knowing that this writer breaks rules, I encourage you to explore when you see the speeches, especially this one that has so many pronouns in every single line. The last little word that we're going to use is time. Shakespeare was fascinated with time. He uses time as a character. Time either works for you or time works against you. If you're on your way to a business appointment and you're 20 minutes late, time is working against you. You have to rush, you have to do something to get yourself there fast because you're late. However, if you're on your way to an appointment and you're early, time is working for you. You might be able to stop, have a cappuccino, window shop. They're two different things. So you, in all of your scene work, must take into account time. One of my favorite speeches is Portia in The Merchant of Venice when she is with Bassanio and he's about to open one of the boxes. And if he opens one of the caskets, they're called, the right one has her picture in it. And that means that they can get married. She starts out with, I pray you tarry. Tarry is a Shakespeare word for meaning stop. Pause a day or two. Pause is a time word. She tells him first to stay there 24 hours and then 48 hours. So that means it's a character choice. She wants him for a long time. In the same speech, she says, therefore, forbear a while. Because she's the countess, a while doesn't have to be 24 hours, 48 hours. It can be just as long as she wants. Later on in this speech, she says, I would detain you here some month or two. So she's gone from a day to 2 days to, for however long she wants, to a month or two. She wants Bassanio to stay there, and she wants him to make the right decision. Time words that we all use, I will give you a list, but I stopped after a while because I want you to make the list your own and I want you to make it longer. Most important word, now. For an actor, all you have is the now, and now is very important in anything that you speak, whether it's classical or contemporary. Suddenly, after a while, then, when, during, again, later, after, finally, before, hurry. These are just a few. The past you can make very specific. Words like then, September 27th, 1949 at 1:20 in the afternoon, I was born. It's very specific. You can't make the future specific. None of us know the future. When? However, as an actor, you must still make a decision. When is this guy going to be finished? 3 minutes? 30 minutes? 3 hours? 3 days? How long? Is he never shut up? You have to pack it, load it, whatever you want to call it. Some Shakespeare time words, anon. Peter in Romeo and Juliet gets lots of laughs with the way he says anon. It means soon, presently, immediately, after, sometimes, now or then, every now and then. It's one of those words that has multiple meanings, but it's a time word. Ere, E-R-E, is the poetic for before. Sooner than, rather than, or could be also meanings for ere. And we just said tarry, which means stop. This is not the complete Shakespeare list of time words. Again, I want you to now start to get involved and come up with your very own time words. Ben Jonson and Christopher Marlowe were always making fun of Shakespeare, saying he couldn't write a wonderful play because he didn't use Aristotle's Poetics and write a play within 24 hours. An example, The Winter's Tale, 17 years pass. However, The Tempest, his final play, takes place in 3 hours. And I think he was saying, I understand time. If I wanted to, I could have. I just didn't want to. In our next segment, it is called Shakespeare's Bawdy. You will learn male and female words. If this is something that would make you uncomfortable to be discussing sexual parts of men and women, you can skip it. However, he writes a lot of bawdy material in all 37 plays, and it must, in my opinion, be discussed. But if it's uncomfortable, please feel the freedom to go to the very next segment after this. I'd like to end with a quote. This one is from Hamlet, and I feel applies to today's segment. My words fly up, my thoughts remain below. Words without thoughts never to heaven go. See you next time.